Welcome to the channel. My name is Brian Jennings. This channel exists to discuss the true story of the movie Critic, to discuss my relationship with Quentin Tarantino. Right? The two of us have been embroiled in what has become now legendary psychic siege for going on 2 years. We have the strongest psychic connection anyone can possibly have. Anyone has ever had, anyone will ever have. Right? Is his wife involved? Is there other people involved? I don't really know. Right? And so, without going on and on, right, that I wrote him a series of letters about playing the lead in the movie Critic, which set into motion a series of dominoes to cascade out, which led to where we are now. So I've written a novel of my experiences. It's called Building a Coven. And what I'll say is that I got cut off a little earlier in my first video I made today. Usually I like to end with music. And so I'm going to play two pieces at the end of this video to compensate. But my heart is heavy today, for sure, 100%. This thing that's occurring between us, right, there's nothing, right, like, I feel like it was like funny to them for a while, that they were like getting something out of it. But now, right, there's the board, right? I turned it all on them in an instant, right? That's the actual truth. And so now, right, it's just ugly, right? It's just evil, right? And so that's why my heart's heavy. Right? So what do I mean when I say that? I mean that I revealed myself in full, and we're like right there, right now. It's building up to it at the end of my novel, right? Where I said, okay, like this is, so we're playing the occult mind game, like the psychic mind game. Okay. And I said, how about this, how about this, how about this, how about this, how about this? Right? And so, right, he said, oh no, there's no daughter, because, almost immediately, like within like 10 days of him, continuing this farce, right? That there's a woman who he alleges is his daughter who men pay her to have sex with her, all bullshit. It's all bullshit, right? All to make me seem insane, right? But once he came clean and said, oh no, joke's on you, ha ha ha, there's no daughter, no one loves you, because he didn't want, right? Because the things that I was doing were detrimental to him and his psyche, right? That I had the thought, oh, I see that you've done, everything that you've done has been in an effort to make me blow my brains out. That's, right, oh, so he never wants to see me, right? He never wants to reconcile, right? He just wants to overwhelm my mind, right? And make me blow my brains out. And so what I'm saying is that in that moment, right, after I realized that's what he wanted, right, knowing that he is essentially incapable of overwhelming my mind, unless, right, there's ways, I could get like a dozen people, 20 people to just bury me in bullshit constantly, right, like real high evil, right? But if he's not prepared to, anyway, that's what we're getting to, right? But when it came on me, right, the realization that, oh, this has all been in an effort to make me put a gun in my mouth, right? That he doesn't want to see me. He doesn't want to reconcile over Tribeca. He doesn't want to have a real relationship. This is the only way he wants to keep it, right? This subtle, magnetic, right, diseased, pathological, psychological relationship, right? Now that he knows I won't put a bullet in my mouth, what else is he prepared to do to see me in the ground? Right, that was the question that I asked myself, right? And I answered it immediately, right? And so you can go to that video that I made earlier, maybe 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, called A Plea to the Pope. Right? And so that was, right, like, oh, that was my fear. Like, oh, he'll do that. And he did it a bunch of times. He hasn't been of late, I will say that, just in terms of like full disclosure, right? That he stopped doing it when I started writing Westboro Baptist. I don't support GodHatesFags.com. That's not, right? But I have the right to live. Right? That's my point. And when he continued with his evil, I said, okay, I'm going to write everyone I can to help me rein him in. And I suspect everyone around him was like, this is fucking bullshit. This guy's cool. Right? He would not be writing Westboro Baptist if he didn't sincerely believe that his life was in danger. If he didn't sincerely believe that he was under attack. Right? And so, right, he's calmed down of late. But my point is that, right, he's done it. Right? When Fish did their 8 shows on the West Coast in April, right, he took palpable steps with high evil to destroy my body and to give me diseases with his mind. Right? And since then, he's done things however many more times, maybe like a dozen more times. Right? And so in his mind, right, in his mind, he was like, oh yeah, like let's do that. Because then he'll be miserable, and then he'll put a bullet in his head. Right? Then he'll kill himself. Right? But now that I haven't done that, right? My point is that, right, that I have now been subjected to the highest evil that anyone can be subjected to, and he'll always deny it. He's not gonna say, yeah, I feel really bad about that, right? But now they're all reckoning with it in a palpable way. Did we give this man AIDS? I'm half afraid to get tested. I'll be honest, right? Because it wasn't just like one needle, it was like a whole bag of saline, and I'm sure it was dirty, right? I'm sure it was actually dirty, right? And this is my point when I say he's a child in his mind, right? And so that occurred. Right, and now we're all reckoning with it, right? And so I was very forlorn earlier today because I have a beautiful dog. I have a great dog. I have 2 dogs, but the one, her name is Sharon. She's a really sweet girl. She's named after the Widespread Panic song. Sharon, what do you do to these men? Right? But she's the dog that's had health problems of the 2, and I was petting her last night, and I was petting her in this one particular area, and then she looked at me, and it was like so palpable. I could start crying right now. Like how they don't have language, like they don't, like they can bark, but she can't tell me what she's afraid of, but in that moment I knew. And we'll just take it day by day, like what can we do, but she was inside a lot today, and I just felt it, that she is afraid because she knows that something's not right inside of her, and she knows that it's out of her control, that there's nothing she can do about it. And while I was petting my dog, I had the feeling, she and I are the same, we're the same, and everyone is to a degree. But Quentin, this whole thing, the movie critic, all of it, that Quentin has shown me that he is prepared to take the highest steps towards my destruction, right? And even though I haven't felt needles for a time, right, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have people meditating on my demise 24/7. Right? And so it's all there on that video, Plea to the Pope, right? It's high evil. It doesn't get any higher than that. That Sharon, my dog, right, is subject to the whims of entropy. that she's just living in the world, you know, and while that's true for everyone, right? I'm subject, right, to the adolescent whims of Quentin Tarantino as well. And there's another game that I like to play, right? And that game is role reversal, right? I am he and he is me. All men are equal under the eye of God, right? And so, as far as role reversal is concerned, right, then I am nothing but justified in fearing for my life all day, every day. Right? Let's just turn it around. Right? And let's say that I'm in Quentin's position. Right? That I got arguably the finest woman alive in her generation. Right? I got $300 million. I got a successful filmography. I got the public's adoration. Right? And I got this actor that didn't want to eat my ass. Right? As far as me, like what would occur is I would have paid him more than he thought he was going to get and said, there's the NDA. Easy. My wife's so goddamn fine. I got a beautiful family. I don't need you. Never did. Right? That's what I would have done. Right? But what do you think Quentin would do if he was me? What do you think Quentin would think in his mind if he had been subjected to the evil that he put on me? Right? Of course, he would wish me dead. Right? Because this thing that he's doing, this thing that he's touching on, right? It's one thing to know a thing, right? That's all fine and dandy, right? But to do a thing, that's, right? This is my point when I say he proves himself a child, right? And since I can more or less rest definitively in the certainty that if Quentin was me in this situation, he would wish me dead, I have to assume that he thinks that of me now. That him in his machinations, right, while he's sucking Daniela's feet, has no choice but to assume, oh, this guy Brian wants me to die. You get it? Because, right, he's taking steps towards giving me AIDS. He's taking a bunch of steps toward making me lose my mind, right? Therefore, if the role was reversed and it was Quentin in this formula, he would wish himself dead, right? What am I saying right now when I say that, right? That I live in perpetual anxiety that he's going to send someone to murder me and my entire family to solve his psychological problem. He's neck deep in it. He's drowning. He's all the way up here. We all are. Right? This is not a child's game, right? And while I won't say that I wish he was dead, right? I want us to reconcile even still, right? Despite the fact that he's tried to poison me with AIDS, despite the fact, right, that he's poisoned my mind for over a year. I know that it's important for us psychologically to embrace, right, and spend time together and make something beautiful together, right? But, right, I have to assume, right, that he wants me dead. There's nothing else to consider there. Right? Because if I'm gone, right, he has no more problems. Right? And this is what I always told people when he canceled the film. Right? I'm about to start reading on my novel. Right? But whenever he canceled the film, I said, oh, well, there's two ways to ask the question. Right? The first way to ask the question is in the positive. It's to say, why did he cancel the film? Right? And that's all fine and dandy. right? Oh, eccentric auteur, right? But the other way of asking the question is, who else is giving him a reason to not make the movie? And of course, I'm the only one that ever gave him any reason to not make the movie. Because of my reviews, because of my essay, right? So we're reading through the novel, right? We're barreling through. I've just remote viewed for the first time, right? And we have, 19 pages left. So we're going to be done with the film soon, or done with the novel, pardon me. Right? And so I suspect that this is his last movie. Right? That if he's not actually making the movie Critic, if he really sold, right, but that was on April Fool's Day, right? And they're supposed to be filming that right now, the continuing story of Cliff Booth, right? But if he's really doing something different this December, it's worth pointing out, right? Then it's the story of the two of us, right? And so when he tells people, oh, I didn't want to make LA old again, that was the same thing I did last time, right? That number one, that's bullshit. That's not why he canceled the film. He canceled the film because of me and my reviews, right? And number two, right? His last film is our legendary Psychic Siege, right? Is it true? Is it not true? I've done nothing but try to speak openly, honestly, forthright with this man, right? And he's been nothing but interested in subtle psychic bullshit, right? Telepathy is a psychic violation, right? When you come to a level of understanding, I've got the novel pulled up, right? And okay, first of all, before I go off on this metaphysical rant, let me just say, right, that Tribeca, that's my fault. That's not Quentin's fault. Right? That Quentin has a filmography and he behaves in a particular way, and that's fine. That's fine in and of itself. There's nothing wrong with that, right? He saw it as me bending the knee by him not having to say anything. And if that's all that it was, right, we wouldn't be here right now. Because he would have paid me, right, up to $5 million for my scene. I sent him a scene. And then he would have made the movie. Right? But this thing is way beyond Tribeca. Right? I can't stress that enough. I feel like I lost the point that I was trying to make, right? But Tribeca is bullshit, right? That this is beyond the movie. Right? This has nothing to do with the movie. This is him with his ego, right? That he said, oh no, I let this guy, like I put myself in this guy's mind, and he didn't give me what I wanted. No, I'm gonna destroy him. Right? And that's where it becomes evil. That's where that's where we've stepped outside the bounds of good sense, right? Of reverence for the divinity that all of us use to wield our clairvoyance,